If you look at the official history of the 19th century Titans, the stories always start small. John D. Rockefeller Sr. is presented as a humble bookkeeper, then a produce merchant in Cleveland, before suddenly coordinating a synchronized financial network across 5 sovereign nations in one generation, long before the invention of the telegraph, requires an existing infrastructure for communication and capital movement that officially did not exist. The bootstrap narratives function as administrative legends. They are stories constructed to bridge the gap between humble beginnings and the sudden arrival of planetary wealth that reached maturity in a remarkably short window. This timeline tracks the emergence of global financial dynasties. Between 1850 and 1900, the Rockefeller, Morgan, and Rothschild empires materialized from obscurity into total planetary control. This half-century window of incomprehensible capital formation happened while much of the United States was officially still a frontier wilderness. The anomaly goes beyond the financial ledgers. To understand where this sudden influx of capital actually came from, we have to look away from the banks and examine the physical environment these families operated within. This timeline suggests a massive transition. It raises the possibility that these dynasties didn't build the world from nothing, but instead staked their claims at the precise moment a prior era was being phased out. Solving the mystery of their untraceable wealth requires examining the physical evidence left behind in the cities they claimed as their own. Photographs from the 1860s and 70s show a staggering level of architectural complexity in frontier towns that officially had barely 50 permanent residents. Massive, vaulted railway terminals and grand columned halls sit fully built in the mud. We are taught that these structures were erected by small groups of men using hand tools, basic wheelbarrows, and no power equipment or modern concrete mixing. The 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago pushes this narrative to its breaking point. Official records claim this sprawling, neoclassical metropolis was built from the ground up in under 2 years, but original survey photographs reveal infrastructure that contradicts a temporary exhibition. They show deep basement systems and precise foundational stonework running beneath the grounds, structures built with a permanence that defies the official construction schedule. You can find this exact same pattern of architectural impossibility in the grand post offices and custom houses dotting nearly every major American city today. The construction timelines simply do not align with the labor capacity of the era. The physical infrastructure was already standing, waiting for the official population to catch up. This pre-existing civilization left a physical signature, known to researchers as the mud flood. Walk through the oldest districts of American cities, and you will find buildings where the original ground floor is inexplicably buried below the current street grade. Descend beneath the modern pavement, and entire subterranean street networks emerge. Intricately carved stone cornices, large archways, and storefronts sit perfectly preserved under feet of sediment in cities with no official record of major burial events. This burial aligns with a series of documented global cataclysms occurring right before the massive wealth boom. Events like the 1859 Carrington event, a geomagnetic storm so intense it set telegraph lines on fire, point to severe environmental upheavals during this reset period. This brings us back to the sudden wealth of the 19th century titans. Men like Rockefeller, Morgan, and Vanderbilt claimed the energy, financial, and transit sectors by walking into a partially cleared, fully vacated infrastructure. They were installed as a new administrative class, granted the titles and charters to manage the physical assets of a civilization that had been recently reset. If this vast infrastructure was largely inherited and the prior inhabitants were gone, it raises an unavoidable question: who actually filled these empty cities? Right alongside the rise of the financial dynasties, another massive logistical operation was taking place. Between 1854 and 1929, an initiative known as the Orphan Trains was highly active. An estimated 250,000 children were systematically transported by rail from New York out to farming families across the western frontier. We are told these were simply unclaimed street children. Yet, a single city producing 250,000 orphans stretches the limits of demographic reality, especially without a preceding mass casualty event to explain the absence of their parents. The timing and volume of these transports align with a systematic repopulation program, placing a new generation into the infrastructure of a continent in flux. Let's look at this timeline again. We have untouchable mega wealth materializing from nothing. We have impossibly scaled architecture built by a fraction of the necessary labor force. We have physical evidence of buried ground floors following recorded cataclysms. And we have massive, synchronized migrations of parentless children. Individually, these are historical oddities, but when stacked together in the exact same 50-year window, the pattern challenges the very foundation of the mainstream historical narrative. The tycoons we were taught to revere as the creators of modern industry were custodians. They were the assigned record keepers, tasked with repapering and refinancing the remains of a lost global empire referred to as Tartaria. The physical buildings have already answered the question of whether a prior, highly advanced civilization existed here. The structures stand as silent witnesses to a history that was overwritten. The only question left is who orchestrated the reset and who decided which families got to inherit the Earth. Subscribe to our channel to uncover more